Today we're going to look at the family tree of Russian monarchs, and we're going to use this European royal family tree chart, which is available as a poster from my website usefulcharts.com. Now the Russian section is here in the purple on the far right of the chart. And we're going to start with this individual here, Ivan the Terrible. He was Ivan the Fourth, and he was the first Tsar or Tsar of Russia. And this word Tsar was taken from the word Caesar, which of course was used by the Romans during the Roman Empire. And there's some debate over whether it should be seen as being the equivalent rank of an emperor or whether it's more similar to a king. But anyway, during the reign of Ivan the Terrible, Russia became a tsardom. And previous to that, the area ruled was known as the Grand Duchy of Moscow. And it was Ivan the Terrible's grandfather, who was Ivan the Third. He's also known as Ivan the Great. He's the one who really expanded the territory. And then eventually his grandson Ivan became the first Tsar. And Russia became known as the Tsardom of Russia. Now, Ivan the Terrible was from the House of Rurik, and the House of Rurik had ruled the Grand Duchy of Moscow from its beginnings, and also nearby Kiev, and they had ruled the area for many centuries. The house goes back to an individual named Rurik, who's not shown on this chart, but he was basically a contemporary of, say, Alfred the Great, in England, and Kenneth MacAlpine in Scotland, and some of these early Carolingian rulers. And the Rurik dynasty actually was pretty powerful for many centuries. They intermarried with some of these other royal houses. King Henry I of France married a Rurik princess, and so therefore all the kings of France from this point forward have a little bit of Rurik blood in them. Also, it is thought that this individual here, Edward the Exile, he's a descendant of these early Anglo-Saxon kings of England. His wife was named Agatha, and we're not sure where exactly Agatha was from, but one theory is that she was a Rurik princess, and so therefore that would make St. Margaret of Scotland a descendant of Rurik, and therefore all the kings of Scotland and all the kings of England, and of course then the later kings and queens of Great Britain. So that's a little bit about the House of Rurik, which ruled in Russia before the Romanovs. But by the time of Ivan the Terrible, the House of Rurik was coming to an end because it was Ivan the Terrible's son, Fyodor I, who was the final ruler of that particular dynasty. And from here, Russia goes through a time known as the Time of Troubles, where there's lots of people from a couple different houses claiming to be the Tsar, and there's a time of famine and war. And it's not until we get this individual here, Tsar Michael I, that the House of Romanov is established, and then we get a new house that rules Russia once again for many centuries. Now, there is a link between these two dynasties. Ivan the Terrible was married to a member of the House of Romanov. His wife was Anastasia, and Anastasia had a brother named Nikita, and Nikita had a son who was the Patriarch of Moscow, which is a religious position, and that individual had a son who becomes this first Romanov Tsar, Michael I. I should also point out that there's a connection between the House of Rurik and the House of Palaiologos, which was the final dynasty in the Byzantine Empire. These three individuals were the final three Byzantine emperors, Manuel II, and then we get his two sons, John VIII and Constantine the 11th. So Constantine 11th was the final Byzantine emperor, and after him, the area was controlled by the Ottomans in the Ottoman Empire. Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, fell in 1453. Now, he had a brother, though, who had a daughter who married Ivan the Great. And this individual is the grandmother of Ivan the Terrible. And so Ivan the Terrible is a descendant of these Byzantine emperors. And that's why Russia at the time considered itself a continuation of the Roman Empire. And Moscow was known as the Third Rome. So Ivan the Terrible is a descendant of the Byzantine emperors, and his son would be as well, but the Romanovs actually are not, because they are only connected to the House of Rurik by marriage. But these connections do exist, and that does make it somewhat interesting. Okay, so let's look at the Romanovs. After Michael I, we get Tsar Alexis, and then Tsar Fyodor III. There was another Fyodor not shown here that reigned during the time of troubles. After Fyodor III, he died early, and the tsardom passed to his two younger brothers, who ruled jointly. However, Ivan V had several physical and mental disabilities, so it was actually Peter I who became Peter the Great, who was the actual Tsar. And it was during the reign of Peter the Great that Russia became known as the Russian Empire. And from here forward, the monarchs are known as emperors. Peter the Great, of course, one of the greatest monarchs in Russian history. He ruled until 1725 and was succeeded by his wife, who ruled as empress for a few years. And in the decades following Peter the Great, things really jump around the family tree here. So following Peter the Great, first we get his wife reigning. Then we get one of his grandsons, who becomes Peter II. But then it passes to the daughter of Ivan V. So she would be the niece of Peter the Great. And then she passed things to her sister's grandson, who was a child at the time. That was Ivan VI, and he ruled only for a very short time. And there was a coup by Empress Elizabeth, who took control and became the monarch. And she was the daughter of Peter the Great through another wife here. You can see he was married 2 different times. So you can see how things really jump around, but then finally it settles kind of on this branch of the tree. And then after Elizabeth, it passes to her sister's son. Now here we get a slight change in the house name, and a lot of people aren't familiar with this. From this point forward, the house is no longer the House of Romanov. It's actually the House of Holstein-Gottorp Romanov. And that's because house names are always named after the father. So because things pass for a female here, the house name actually comes from the father. And this father was Danish, from the Danish royal house. You can see here King Christian I of Denmark and his descendants. And the kings of Denmark go this way. But there was a brother here who becomes Duke of Holstein-Gottorp. And a couple generations down the road here, we get Charles Frederick, Duke of Holstein-Gottorp, who marries Anna, daughter of Peter the Great. They have a son who becomes Emperor Peter III. Now, Peter III was married to the individual who becomes Empress Catherine the Great. And she was actually of German descent. And she, in a palace coup, overthrew her husband, and we're not sure if she was involved in the conspiracy to have him killed or not, but he did die, and she became the empress, and she's known as Catherine the Great, and one of the more well-known monarchs in Russian history. And they had a son named Paul, who becomes emperor after his mother. Now, there is a theory that he actually might be the son of one of Catherine's lovers, and therefore not actually descendant of this Romanov line. And there's no way to know for certain, but the official story, of course, is that he is a descendant of the Romanovs, and so therefore of this house. And following him, two of his sons become emperor. We get Alexander I and Nicholas I, and he also had a daughter that marries into the Dutch royal family over here. And then Nicholas I has a daughter that marries into the Danish royal family, which also came to rule in Greece. And interestingly, this leads to Prince Philip, who is the husband of Queen Elizabeth. So Prince Charles, Prince William, and Prince George, and of course Prince Harry as well, all of these individuals have a little bit of Russian blood in them from this connection here. But it is to Nicholas I's son, Alexander II, that the monarchy continued. Alexander II is followed by Alexander III. And Alexander III married a Danish princess, and so did the King of Great Britain. So these two individuals were sisters, and therefore Emperor Nicholas II and King George V were cousins, and you can see the family resemblance between these two monarchs. Now, of course, Nicholas II was the final monarch of Russia. He was assassinated during the Bolshevik Revolution. The monarchy ended, and we get Soviet Russia beginning, and Russia became a communist country after that. And so he was the final Tsar, the final emperor of Russia. And I do have a separate video that goes through who would be the heir if Russia ever did decide to reinstate its monarchy. We actually have to go fairly far back up the line to find several different descendants. But that's another video, and you can watch that. So that is the monarchy of Russia, including some of the Ruriks and the House of Romanov. And once again, if you're interested in buying a copy of this poster, it's available from my website, usefulcharts.com. And I have several other videos based on this chart where we go through the English royal family tree, which later becomes the British royal family tree. We've also looked at the monarchy of France, of Spain. We've also looked at the House of Habsburg. And so there's separate videos for all of those monarchies if you want to check them out. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.